Hi, I'm Paul Laney, the retired sheriff from Cass County, North Dakota, and the current vice president of national sales here at Turnkey Corrections.
And I'm Lauren Matthews, and I'm a social media manager here for Turnkey.
And you are listening to JailTalk. And today we kind of have a very neat show planned. You're probably looking at this young lady sitting beside me going, she doesn't look like a sheriff or a jail administrator. Well, you're right. She's not. She is my great niece of Bailey Roscoe. And welcome, Bailey. Welcome to Jail Talk.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's really cool to have her here today. And now you're all sitting out here going, okay, why is his great niece on Jail Talk? Well, she's here because she is the one you are all looking for. Bailey, we are very proud to say, just graduated from Hibbing Community College in Hibbing, Minnesota, with her law enforcement degree. And Bailey has made the decision to look for a career in law enforcement. So she is the one you guys are all hunting right now. As across this nation, we are dealing with the recruiting issues in law enforcement and fighting to get the young quality ones into our departments. She's what you're looking for, and she's who you're looking for. We thought, as we've been visiting with a lot of our guests, as Lauren and I were saying when we were kind of planning this, not one law enforcement leader have we had on this show that has said, oh, I'm full. I got plenty. No, I'm not looking for anybody. I don't need any help at all. Just the opposite, right?
Exactly.
And so we thought, as we were kind of putting together, well, let's get a young law enforcement officer out there who's just getting into the field, just looking for their first position, and let's let them tell you what they're looking for and what they're looking for in an agency and what's important to them. And we started thinking, well, who do we get? And I went, oh, I know. I got the perfect person. And so, Bailey, we are serious. Thank you, for coming on the show and just being part of this with us today. I think you're going to be a very valued guest because there's a lot of people right now sitting up going, okay, I need to hear this. And you're right.
Pens and paper out. Well, like Paul said, Bailey, you are the one that they are looking for. So can you share with our listeners just a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So I'm originally from southern Minnesota. My parents moved up to Sauk Rapids, St. Cloud area when I was little. Went to all schools there, elementary, middle, high school, played sports throughout all of it. And then I went up to Hibbing Community College, like Paul said, graduated with my AAS in law enforcement, and now I'm back at home in the area working at a police department there. So, just trying to get my foot in the door somewhere. Somewhere is going to take care of me. So
let's talk about that. First of all, let's jump back for just a second because I remember my time at the academy. They did have an academy back then.
You remember?
I was going there. I knew you were going to do that.
You set me up for it, Paul.
I did. I kind of handed you a softball there, didn't I? But I'll guarantee you, my academy time was very different. My academy back then was 7 weeks, and that's half of what most of them are right now. And back at that time, we thought that was long. When I listened to the old timers prior to that time, we got keys and a gun belt, and they said, go enforce the law. We had some good quality training, and now you look at it, you went for 2 years.
Yeah.
So it's a very different time. So how was your time at the academy?
It was good. They made it so realistic that, you almost felt you were already doing the job.
Yeah, and and I think that's the goal of any good academy is when you're in the training, when you're doing the thing, you want to be able to walk out. And when I used to train, I used to teach officer response to domestic violence at our state academy, and I would tell them straight out, when you walk out of here after you're done with my couple of days, I want you to feel like you've already responded to 5 domestic calls, 6 domestic calls. I want you to go walking right into your very first one and go, I've already done this. And so that's good to hear it was like that. So I imagine lifelong friends, people maybe forever you'll still be going back to talking to your instructors, 10 years from now. And the academy is always that first step in, and it feels good.
Yeah, and it was super nice because we knew exactly when to have fun. We knew exactly when it was time to be serious, and our instructors made that very clear as well. So you got both ends of the spectrum going
Plus that
into
beginning
there.
of that professionalism, as we all know.
Yeah.
Cops like to have fun.
Definitely.
You see and do a lot of crazy things in this career, and there's a time to turn it on, and then there's a time to turn it off and have fun with your friends within parameters, obviously. Right. There's many on Monday morning. Some of us law enforcement leaders they did what? But no, all joking around aside, that is where you start learning that. You start transitioning that from being a civilian to I wear a badge, I'm under the public eye, and it sounds like Hibbing does a great job of laying that all out for you guys. And when you walk out the door, you're kind of ready to go.
Most definitely, yes.
Well, what what drew you to law enforcement? I mean, right now, there's not always a great connotation around it. There's a lot out there, but obviously we know it's a great profession. So what made you want to say yes to this profession?
So I just, as like ironic or as corny as it may sound, like it always felt like a calling, I guess. It was something that always intrigued me. Thought it was super cool, the many aspects of it, community, the law side of it. Like there's so many different things you can go with law enforcement itself that it's hard like not to want to be a part of it. And actually, what kind of, I guess, set it in stone, I went on a ride-along. My first ride-along was with Officer Bosma at Sauk Rapids Police Department, RIP Canine Thunder, who just recently passed away. But he just made the experience so much more worthwhile. Sauk Rapids isn't a huge town, so they don't have much going on, but getting to know the canine, like his coming up and everything that he's been through, just kind of like, hey, I want to be a part of that. Like, that's what I want to do. So
yeah, it's really cool to hear you say that, because we've had a lot of sheriffs come through, and even Paul has said it, like, it just really feels like a calling, and that's how I think you can know you're on the right track, because it just, if you can't say no to it. I mean, we've had sheriffs come through here who have had 30, 40 years, and that's exactly what they said too.
Right. It's just how it starts out and keeps going that way.
There's a special breed, and you have that blood, and it's just you can't explain it. You can't really decipher it. You just know it, and the next thing you know, because a lot of people just don't run down the street and walk into the police department and say, "Hey, here I am." You know, I mean, it's there's just something in you that you start taking that measure, because it does already start separating you from your friends. It does already start separating you from certain people. Like, oh, you're going to be a cop? Right. Really? Oh, great. And yet it didn't deter you. And and so it is a calling, and it's not corny, because any of us that were where you were at had that exact calling.
Right.
And there might be those that have it, try it, and then get out after a year or two. But the majority that spend 30 years like me, we just. We just had Sheriff Torgerson on from Olmsted County, going on 42 years in the business. That's a calling. That's a way of life. And as obviously we're family, so I know you, but you have that. And as we've talked and we visited, it gets me excited to say, we're in good hands in the future. And their generation's going to do just fine. But there's a difference. There's a difference in the older generation and what they're looking for. And that's why you're here today, is to kind of maybe help educate some of my era. And some of those law enforcement leaders out there that, it isn't like the days of old. There is a difference. And we're going to talk about that a little bit today. So when you were looking for a job, you're done now. You went through the academy, you graduated, and now you're doing some things. You're in a community service officer position now with Waite Park, and just went full time. And she's only 20. And so, she's looking and waiting to turn 21. And we had talked about that a little bit, because there was opportunities for you right out of the gate. You could have went right on the street, and you decided, no, I want to wait a little bit. I want to feel this out, which I think is smart. And you kind of have a path set, but yet you're pretty open-minded too. So what when you were looking for a job and thinking about it, what drew you to a position? What are some of the things that mattered to you?
Yeah. So right out of college, it was mostly just something close to home, something to get my feet in the water, something super simple. Just, I guess, to give myself that reassurance that, yes, like, this is my calling, like, this is what I want to do. Just to be in the real world and doing it in real life. So yeah, that was like the biggest thing for me. Other than that, it was just good people, a good department, community, most of the basics.
A lot of the places out there, when you had people recruiting you, they weren't just from Minnesota, were they?
No, so we actually had so many people across the country come to Minnesota, up to a small town, Hibbing, Minnesota, just to recruit a bunch of us to their own departments. We had like Montana, we had places down in like southern United States, literally anywhere, and they're explaining their packages, what their benefits were, and there wasn't just like one of us or one of them. It was more than one person from the department coming out to talk to us. So they were making an effort, going out of their way. But it's funny because not one of those recruiters was from Minnesota. So, I mean, even though it's easy to reach us, but we still are looking for departments to go out of their way to say, like, hey, this is what we have to offer. We want you.
You know, and it's one thing that I think obviously a lot of our listeners, but Minnesota is a very sought after group of academy because Minnesota, and I knew this from my years in being a North Dakota sheriff, Minnesota has very high standards, very strict standards for their academies. And so if you can, and once you graduate at an academy in Minnesota, you can pretty much go anywhere in the country. And they're gonna seek you out. And so I think that's something also, all of our listeners out there, this is a battleground for bringing in quality people. And this just shows it right there. When you're in Hibbing, Minnesota, which is a very, very well-recognized academy, they are very good at what they do. And you got police departments from Alabama up here trying to recruit, Bailey Roscoe to come down and be a Southern Belle police officer, They don't always welcome us Yankees down there too much. Just kidding to my Alabama friends. No, in all seriousness, they're up here recruiting you. I think that shows us what's happening in this country as far as candidates, that all the departments are going out looking. I'll guarantee you there's probably northern departments that are out looking at some of these other academies, outside their. So in a sense, that's really a benefit for you and your classmates that you guys really have a lot to choose from.
Oh, definitely. And I mean, anywhere you want to go, like you can easily go try it if it's not something you like in a year or two. Like you have so many other options that it just makes it so easy just to get your foot in the door anywhere, really.
Well, and going back to what you were saying about benefits, we've seen how they're recruiting, and they're coming out with so many unique benefits that I know Paul said that he's never seen before. I mean, we've seen like pet insurance, talk space, to help with mental health. We've seen increased PTO. We've seen signing bonuses. I mean, there's so much out there that they're offering. What kind of stuff generationally has been interesting to you as a candidate when you're looking?
So a few things that have actually come up recently are a lot about like gyms. I feel like fitness is a big thing, always has been, but like now more than ever, whether it be like an in-department gym, like a discounted gym membership, I see those a lot. Police houses, and if you don't know what that is, it's kind of like a getaway for like officers off duty, just kind of like hang out with each other kind of thing.
So like not always having to be in the public eye kind of thing, like they give you I don't want to say a safe space, but they give you guys a place where like you guys can, not on duty, not hanging out at the station, but you don't have to be out in the public eye, you don't have to be out at the bars, you can just kind of go all hang out and play video games, just have some camaraderie time. That's something that would have been like unheard of in my time, at least, in my area as far as a place like that. We had our FOP clubs, we had our state association stuff, things like that, but I don't think something like that would have even crossed our minds back when I was in, your age. And I started out at 22, so I wasn't too much older than you, and that would have been very different. So they actually have stuff like pet insurance, things like that. Yeah, I know you guys were doing a lot of research on this.
Yeah.
Very different from my era. When I tested for Fargo PD, I tested with 350 other people for 2 spots, and I think it eventually went into like 6 spots on that list. And there was none of this recruiting you and going to give you and spoil you, and I was suck it up, buttercup, and this is what we're offering. We have 2 spots. You're competing, with 350 others, and you'll take what we offer. And I was blessed. I was with a good department in a good city, and wouldn't regret 1 second or 1 minute there. But it was a very different time. It was like, if I want this job, I will do whatever I have to do to get in and to compete and do all that. And so you guys are really, you're in the driver's seat, aren't you?
Yeah.
So give us an example.
We have so many options. Yeah. So when I was actually in school, I would reach out. It was like beginning of my second year, post-eligible soon, within 9 months. I was reaching out to departments, just trying to get a feel for things, places around home. Reached out to some chiefs, be like, hey, can I have a tour? Can I meet some of your officers? Just kind of get a feel for what the department was about. And surprisingly, they all turned me down. I'd never got the opportunity to go search those places. So that's what kind of set me back, made me take a step back. I'm like, hey, let's find a department that wants me, someone that's going to set me up to be my full potential, or to become my full potential.
Right. Values you.
Yeah. Gives me all the resources I need to become a good police officer. So that's why I took this community service officer job back around home, just kind of taking my time until I actually get on the street.
That's interesting, and I think that's one thing. And I guarantee you, there's probably a lot of you out there that have just sat up and said you turned away a candidate that's looking at you, and and maybe that's a little bit. Obviously we're not going to call out any departments or anything like that, but that's a little bit of, I think, of a wake up call. Whereas like, you just lost a good candidate, because let me guess, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but I'd be willing to bet you're a little more inclined to not look at those departments than you are those that said, hey, come on in and see what we're all about, and that type of thing. So I think maybe that's a way that we all look at. We have to change our ways. And when if we're gonna recruit the Baileys of the world, and there's a lot of you out, well, unfortunately there are not a lot of you out there. But those of you that are out there that are looking for those careers, you need to maybe, for lack of better terms, wine and dine you a little bit, make you feel welcome. We so many. And we'll talk about this here in a little bit, but it isn't always the benefits and all that you're interested in either. It's the leadership and the culture, correct?
Correct, yep. How they connect with the community, just everything that they have to offer, resources. And I mean, whether or not they have like K-9 or some of these things aren't necessarily deal breakers, but it's how they go about working around those things, how they connect with departments around them to get those resources. Like, it's all of the aspects put into one. So,
yeah. And you're 20 years old sitting here saying that. So if you don't think she's not looking at you, thinking the same thing, and her classmates, I say you, but you represent your era of new police officer, new deputy, new trooper. That's what they're doing. And that's how they're looking at all of you and at all of our agencies. And, whether it be, do a reception night for the local college, or do something like that where you invite everybody in and do a meet and greet, that type of stuff. I think that's one of the things. And I know we have some amazing law enforcement leaders out there that are doing a lot of this kind of thing, but you're the guys that are going to get the Baileys of the world. Those that they think you're just going to sit around and wait for them to come to you. Probably not, right?
Yeah, no,
so you have a story for us, don't you?
Yeah, so actually how I got my job recently was a connectivity through another part-time job I have at the moment. He came up to me and was like, not serious whatsoever. It was like, hey, like, we have a CSO position opened over in Waite Park. And they're like, call up one of our community outreach people, get a tour set up. And I was like, okay, like, I will call her right now. So the next day I called her. I was like, hey, this officer was like, told me I could do a walkthrough through the department. And she was like, okay, like, when would you like to come in? Got a tour of the whole department, a tour of like all the fire department and city hall, since they're kind of all connected. It was super cool. They were super welcoming. The nature of the department, there was officers there that I got to meet briefly, but
and where are you working right now?
Waite Park Police Department.
Right there.
Yep.
Where that happened.
Yeah.
Because you were made to feel welcome, valued, and recruited, and now you're there. And there's probably a good possibility you're going to maybe be there for many, many years.
Yeah, and it was just funny because the officer who actually told me about the position didn't know that I actually applied for the position until I started working there. So because he was like, oh my gosh, like, I was completely joking. And I'm like, no, like, you offered me this opportunity to get to know your department. I'm going to take it at full grasp and I'm going to run with it. So
well, and here you are. And I think that's a lesson learned for all of us, that as you look at your recruiting, that it is important to just think outside the box with your recruiting. So I was actually going to ask you what recruiting resonated with you. Well, you just kind of said it. It was like you went out, you made me feel like I was important, like you wanted me there. And I think we've all been in those positions where when you walk in someplace, you don't feel very welcome. How long do you stay? You don't. And so if you have the opportunity to walk in and do what they all did there at Waite Park, well done, Waite Park PD. You're there, and you're there full time, and probably going to, I know you're kind of hoping someday to put a badge and a gun on there, maybe, and work the streets. So
almost definitely.
Yeah. So
well, the cool thing is that's that's kind of the bare minimum. That's like a very basic to just be like, yeah, come see what we're about. I mean, if people are turning you away, like, no, don't come. And maybe there are rules around that and stuff, but just feeling welcome, like that's so basic for a department to be able to do. Like, all those other benefits are great, but if you feel welcome, right off the bat, you're like, oh, this is a culture that I want to be a part of.
Definitely.
So then that kind of leads into my next question. When you're looking at other opportunities, where are you looking? You know, are you looking on social media like our generation does? Are you going to the websites? Or, you know, you kind of mentioned you kind of got your current opportunity by word of mouth. So where are you looking, and where do you plan to look if you're ever looking to, you know, look for a new opportunity?
Right. So actually all throughout school, I would use Postboard website. They have all usually Minnesota job listings in there. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you can go to like different states and everything, like all United States openings are on there. But that was like the main spot for me to look, just because I didn't know much of anything else other than directly contacting the PD.
So like when you would get the spot, like you get the link from your Postboard site, then would you go check out their webpage and their Facebook page and whether they had programs and canines and you know, narcotics agents and all that? Is that the kind of, that would be your start in, was more the social media aspect of it?
Yeah. So the Postboard website was like the biggest thing, and then it would go to like their website and kind of like what they're all about, how many officers they have. Just kind of, all of the resources that are available to them, and then would lead to like their Facebook page, see like their community connectivity, all that kind of stuff, everything they have to offer on that side, as well as the law side, and then kind of persuaded me yes or no with how close it was to home at the moment. But I mean, as I grow older, you work more, you get more money, so you can go wherever you want.
Exactly.
But,
Well, and you had classmates, I am going to deviate here a little bit, but you had classmates that did leave Minnesota, correct?
Yep. We had one go up to, like, Fargo, North Dakota.
Good choice. Great choice.
You're not biased at all.
Well done. Smart kid.
And then one actually went to, like, southern United States. But yeah, we kind of went all over, up on the border of Canada.
So the recruiting from those other agencies outside of the state worked.
Oh, yes.
And so, you know, just because they're a Minnesota academy, you can't, you know, so I think that's to the Minnesota people watching, that's a lesson. They're not just going to come. And then to all of you out there outside the state, it works. Come after them. And because, you know, like I said, Minnesota standards are high. And they, you know, Minnesota trained law enforcement officers often do very well wherever they go around the country. So very, very cool.
And I think like home has to do a lot with it. It's comfortable. It's something not out of the usual, something you know, community you know. And I know like that's comfortable.
So when you was that, I mean, especially being 20, I think, you know, and maybe that, you know, if you had some maybe that have been away to the military or something like that, it might be easier to move to a different part of the country. But for you, like some of you coming right out of college or from this area, you're probably going to start looking, you know, around homeward first. And that's, I think, something that our listeners can say, okay, that I need to enhance that. Then I need to use that as part of my recruiting tool and figure out a way into your recruiting method to make that resonate with somebody like you, correct?
Right.
So, well, I'll tell you what, my dear great niece, I like to call you, I used to always say niece, and Laura's, no, you're old, Paul, she's your great niece. We are coming to the end of the show, and, you know, so as we look out at our listeners here, you know, we have sheriffs here. It was ironic, you know, we had a sheriff here earlier, and he heard you were going to hear, and what did he do? He handed me 2 business cards. He said, have her call me. If there's ever, you know, and we've, like Laura and I were saying, we've noticed that a lot with our guests, the recruiting issues and big things. If you're out here talking to these sheriffs and jail administrators and command officers, you know, that captain that's looking and listening right now that's in charge of recruiting for their department, what is the best piece of advice you can give to law enforcement leaders looking to recruit you today, you and your classmates?
Right. So, I mean, we are kind of in the driver's seat, so it's hard to not be selective or picky, if you so call it.
Good point.
But we definitely want what's best for us. We want some department that's going to set us up for success. We want someone who's going to cater to those wants and needs and just kind of lay it all out on the table for us.
And that's not saying you're going to be spoiled little brats.
Oh, God, no.
That's saying that, listen, I can pick where I want to go, and I can pick what's best for me and my family. That doesn't mean you're not going to be fanatically dedicated to your department, your community, your fellow officers, but you got to earn it. Right. They got to get you. They got to get you to say, I want to belong here. I'll give you all I got. That's one thing I've learned with these younger generations. you always hear that, oh, this younger generation, they don't know anything. You know what? They've been saying that back to the time of Socrates. All right, this next generation, they just haven't figured it out. But, we all, when we were that next generation, guess what? We figured it out. We became the law enforcement leaders, and we did pretty damn well all the way down the line. Now it's your era. What I have noticed about this, they're better educated. Your generation is so informed because you have everything right at your fingertips, but you're also very hardworking people. But you also balance that with something maybe our generation, my generation, didn't do so well, was balance. Your generation's a lot better at balance and decide, I'm going to give you all I got at work, but I'm also going to give my off time some. And I think the departments that realize that will do better. And so I think your point is well taken. Yeah. And so I can't thank you enough today. I do want to throw a thank you out there to your police department, Wade Park PD, for letting us have some time to come speak to us today. We really appreciate that. So a shout out to Wade Park PD and your supervisors and your chief. And maybe I'm a little biased because I think you got a good one here, but I do think you got a good one here. And I just appreciate your time. This is exactly what we wanted to do with this, because we have listeners everywhere from all over the United States that listen to this. And our whole goal with this was for you to step back and just say, how do I get people like her? How do we draw them in? And that was our goal with today. Our goal is always to help our sheriffs out there and our jails out there better recruit and become better agencies. So thank you for your time today. It was awesome having you here. Plus, I got to hang out with you a little bit. Yeah. So that's always cool, too. So we appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram at JailTalk Podcast and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And you can always reach out to us at jailtalkpodcast@gmail.com.
I'm Paul Laney.
And I'm Lauren Matthews.
This has been Jail Talk, and we'll see you next time.